Because if you can achieve all of those things, your success rate is going to be way higher than anyone else. Not just because you'll be closing more deals, but at the same time, you're going to be able to convince more people who are maybes, that are, not sure, don't know. You can give them clarity, and you can, help them sort through that clutter and be decisive. And so I really just coach people to get these people to know, like, and trust you, and be confident and project confidence in that you can get whatever it is that they want done.
Welcome to the RealPropPro podcast, where strategy, innovation, and wealth converge to redefine real estate investing.
Hello, and welcome to the RealPropPro podcast. I'm your host, Ian Dietler. I've been investing in real estate here in Sacramento, California, through fix and flips and wholesaling. I also manage rehab projects and spend a lot of time networking at real estate investment events, both locally and nationally. I know how hard it can be to get started in real estate investing, and also how difficult it could be to stay consistent, which is exactly why we started this show. At RealPropPro, we teach and coach investors at every level. Our software focuses primarily on tax deed and tax lien investing, but our training covers a majority of strategies, including fix and flipping, lease options, sub-2, seller financing, multifamily, and so much more. Our mission is to give people the tools, systems, and mindset to succeed. You can learn more at RealPropPro.com. Today, our guest is Micah Nicholes. He is the CEO and owner of USLeadList.com, one of the nation's top provider of probate and pre-probate leads. He's closed deals himself, built a powerful marketing platform for investors, and is very passionate about creating freedom for his family while helping others succeed in real estate investing. Micah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. What a great intro. God, I feel like a superhero all of a sudden. It's great.
Yeah, you're a rock star, man. We're so happy to have you on here.
Yeah, no, what a pleasure. And props on your software. I've been poking around a little bit. Like, you built a cool operation there. Like, I really like that. It's pretty seamless and brings together especially some really powerful techniques. Like, tax deed, tax lien is not exploited nearly enough, and it should be.
Absolutely. That's really our focus. That's where all the magic happens, is tax deed and tax lien investing on our software. Some of the stuff that we can do is, track people's portfolio of tax deed and tax liens. And we also have a really powerful tool to search nationwide for anything from over the counter to tax deeds in some states, tax liens in other states, and all of the above. So we've aggregated all that data to where our students and users can seamlessly search in almost any state and almost any county.
Very cool.
So to get started, we like to talk about our guests' early life growing up. So where were you born and where did you grow up?
Sure, yeah. So my my dad was a truck driver, kind of sole breadwinner of the family. So we bounced around a lot. I was born just outside of Portland, Oregon. Grew up, I spent my first couple years around the Portland metro, but then we moved to a suburb of Boise, Idaho. Caldwell was the name of it. Spent my, formative years there till I was about 13, and then I moved to Wisconsin. My dad lost his job, or the terminal, they closed that, shut down, we had to transplant as a teenager, which was not ideal, but again, he didn't have a choice, right? He's kind of stuck to the 40-hour, whatever his employer was willing to do for him. And they closed down their operation in Boise, and our whole family picked up. I'm one of 7 kids, and we moved to Lodi, Wisconsin.
Wow, 7 kids, huh? That's a lot of people to move.
It is, yeah. A couple were out of the house at that point, but still, yeah. It was a trek for sure.
When you said Lodi, I thought you were saying Lodi, California.
No, I know. That's yeah, absolutely. That's the only Lodi that anyone knows. When I say Lodi, Wisconsin, they're like, huh? Yeah, no. straight Midwest. So yeah, I didn't even know what it was like to be like see green. I'd never experienced humidity before. I didn't know what humidity was because like in Idaho and where I grew up, it was like high desert, no humidity or sweat worked. It doesn't work here. It's not how it is.
So is that where you reside now?
It is close.
Okay.
I bumped around a little bit after high school. Went to the school of hard knocks and graduated with a wife who was also from the Midwest. And I had three kids when I was really young. And so we ended up buying a property just west of Madison, Wisconsin. And that's where Lodi's close to Madison as well. It's just kind of on the other side, north and more west.
So what kind of work were you doing before getting into owning and running businesses? Did you have like a W-2 or anything like that?
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, as a context, our our family, we were dirt poor. We had nothing, seven kids. My dad worked hard. He gave his whole life to us kids. But, at the same time, there just wasn't that much to go around. He did well as a trucker, but again, sole breadwinner. And so, yeah, after high school, I basically went into the workforce. I started construction. I did that for a while, and then I transitioned into restaurants. So I worked at high-end restaurants for, gosh, a long time, maybe 15 years. And ultimately, probably my most stable job I had, I was working for Sub-Zero and Wolf at their headquarters are really close to here. And so basically they run a corporate restaurant inside of, well, it's attached to their factory, and that's where they kind of wine and dine all the sales reps, anyone who basically has a hand in selling their product. And so, worked my way up there, was a wine buyer, kind of ran the front end of that place. And along the way, I want to say about, it's 10 years ago. I was working there and then doing other things. I've always had some other side hustle that I was doing. I had a sawmill. I had construction business. I always had something because, like I mentioned, I had three kids. My first one was born when I was 22, and I had them kind of in rapid fire after that. So by the time I was 26, I had three kids. And I was working basically just, low end, blue collar jobs to try and get by. So I was always trying to hustle, get more food on the table, just get by really. So about 10 years ago, I bought my first rentals, and that was the good old days when you could still pick up decent deals on the MLS. Both of them were on the MLS at the time. One was it was a 4 unit. I bought it for 52,000, and then I bought a 5 unit for 90,000. And so that was my first foray into real estate. It'd been on my radar for a long time. I wanted to do it. I didn't know all the strategies that I know now. So, I basically put money by, saved money, and, went through the normal, financing process and got those locked up. And gosh, I had those for, I think, 5 years. I sold both of them, but that was how I got started into real estate. That was my first kind of segue.
Now, what got you thinking about buying properties? Like you'd mentioned that it's been on your radar and you kind of were thinking about it, but like, what clicked for you to be like, okay, now I'm actually going to buy a property. Now I'm actually going to do this.
I mean, it's so cliche, but God, Robert Kiyosaki strikes again. I
Yeah.
read his book when I was young. I was like 19 or so. And so that was the first kind of seed. Before that, I mean, and just in general, I just like the tangibility of real estate. I like real estate. I like buildings. I like building systems, like all kind of all the components. And so in one way, shape, or form or another, I just found myself gravitating towards that anyway. I would do construction. I had an overhead garage door business. I was, like I said, I had a sawmill. I liked all the components of it. But at the end of the day, it's all for real estate. And so that was the seed, though. It's Robert as Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Wonderful. A lot of people that I talk to, that is kind of one of the sparks. And it's actually one of the sparks that also got me interested in real estate. And I had a similar story to where I read the book and it's like, okay, that's kind of cool, kind of moved on. And then later on, a couple of years down the road, it's like, oh, okay, this is what he was talking about. This is what it means
Right.
to build an
Exactly.
asset.
Yeah.
This is why it's important to start to do some of these steps to acquire assets and reduce liabilities. So I have the same type of story kind of starting there with Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad. So anyone who's listening and wants to figure out where to get started, I almost always recommend that book. There's also a second part to it called the Cash Flow Quadrant, and it gets a little bit more into his, self-employed, employment, business owner, and investor, his 4 quadrants. So I highly recommend that as well. So, those are 2 good books to get started if you're listening and wondering where to get started.
A quick segue. Be, literally because of real estate, what was it? It was about a year ago. I'm in a mastermind with Sharon Lecter. So Sharon is basically the silent partner. She was the book publisher who published all this. She was really the force behind all of that. And I got to sit down and have dinner with her and just profess how grateful I was for all of her work. And she does a bunch of other really cool things. Like she's super passionate about just educating kids about finances. It's just not part of our society. And anyway, so grateful to real estate that like I had an opportunity to meet this person who was pivotal in the change in my life.
So I got one more thing too also about Rich Dad I want to kind of brag a little bit about. Earlier this year, I went to an event called Deal Champ Summit 2025. And we got this book here. This is also a Rich Dad one. It might be backwards, but it's Real Estate Riches, offered by Dolph DeLaRue. And I got to meet him in person, and I brought my book and he actually signed it. So that was a fun little trip to, another Rich Dad book that I highly recommend. Got to meet the author. He was a great speaker. He was a really nice guy. Stood around and chatted with him in the VIP section. So it's really nice chatting with him.
Small world. Yeah, I met him too recently. And you're right. That guy he's a gem. They're like so nice, so humble, like just really, really cool guy.
And he's a firecracker too. I mean, for his age, man, he's
That's
very
true.
energetic, man. I love that guy. Can't say enough about him. So getting back to real estate here, kind of going back to that first deal that kind of sounded like it was about kind of 2 different properties all in one. How did that go? What did that process look like? Did you have any fears going into those deals?
I mean, it's been a minute, but I think with anything, yeah, it's uncomfortable trying something new. However, I think I'm more wired as an entrepreneur in that I don't mind risk. And so, I'm more like, ready, fire, aim, and, kind of deal with the mess that comes afterwards, more action, and then you deal with the consequences afterwards. So I compared to, I think, a lot of other people who I meet, they're like, well, how did you, they get into the kind of the nitty gritty. I'm like, I just did it. And then I solved problems afterwards.
Yeah.
That's good and bad, right? That's a double-edged sword. So, because I've gotten into places where I shouldn't be sometimes and the consequences weren't great. So you absolutely should know what you're doing. But, once I started in real estate, I was like, there's so much upside here when you buy right. When the fundamentals of the purchase are good, there's so much forgiveness on the back end of that property.
Now, how would you compare kind of that feeling and those fears and kind of the methodology of purchasing the real estate for investment purposes compared to buying and running businesses? Because I think that you've kind of bought and worked a couple different businesses. Is that correct?
So I've only transacted on one. I've done, partnerships. I've only, the company that I own now, US Leadless, I used SBA funding to purchase that. I guess to compare the two, it's a little bit like apples and oranges because with real estate, in general, and this is different for you in the California market where, a single house costs probably close to as much as I paid for my business. But out here in the Midwest, like I mentioned, I paid 50 grand for my first property and then 90 for the second. Like in the Midwest, it's changed now some, but prices for properties are relatively cheap. You can get good cash flowing assets in stable markets for a nominal price versus buying this company, way more risk. There were so many more unknowns that, I guess just things that I didn't know that I didn't know. And part of SBA financing, for folks who don't know, is they put a universal guarantee on all of your assets. So literally everything you own, the bank has either first or second position on, depending on, the loan structure. And if you default on that loan, it's theirs. They can take it from you. And so, the upside was, I bought this established business. It was already been running for 15 years. There was a great product. There was technological upside that I could infuse right away, which I really, really loved. The two gentlemen who I bought it from, they were in their 70s. They ran the business well, but they were basically doing everything on paper. So it's a digital product, but they were doing everything on paper orders. Like it was kind of crazy. So, for me going in, there was some really good upside in that I could streamline, I could reduce my employee count. I could, just add modern technology and make the business run a lot better. The downside is that, I have to step into a business that I don't know about, and I have to be the stopgap between, losing customers and then also growing the business, gaining customers, and, just figuring out what these guys established over years and years and years. That said, I think the natural question is, would I do it again? And the answer is yes. I was just looking at another business to buy this morning. It very much is a way to fast forward if you can handle the stress, the risk, and you're not risk adverse. To, I guess, put yourself in a financial position where you buy the business and then you get to build it up from where it was. And that can be a huge, huge lever for your financial picture, for, growing as a person. That's something that most people don't talk about. It's like, that takes a lot to be the guy. And this is true in real estate, just the same. You sign a loan and you're liable for however much, I guess, your payments are every month. If you can't perform, there's consequences to that. But for me, on my side, the net upside has outweighed all of the cons that I mentioned.
Now, would you say you did a little bit more research into the purchase of the business than you did in real estate? Because you had mentioned earlier the real estate was more of like, shoot, aim, and then reevaluate.
Yep.
Were you a little bit more precise in evaluating the business before the purchase? Because it sounds like that SBA loan, really had some severe consequences if things went wrong.
Yeah, most definitely. So I guess the origin story around that is during COVID, basically, they were giving, I think they were, I can't remember exactly how it worked. They would make several, I think, 6 months payments for you on behalf of the SBA. And basically they were just trying to encourage people to buy businesses and kind of keep that, that transfer of businesses open. So there was this big upside. I'm like, wow, I mean, gosh, if I could find the right business and, seize this and, get basically free money from the government during this period, like that seems like a good idea. I had a lot of time, as everyone else did during COVID. And so I vetted literally over 100 companies, and also at the time, I was working a construction company, overhead doors, and I hurt my back really bad. And so I was literally horizontal for 6 months. So I couldn't do any other work. I had some other side hustles going. But for the most part, I was just like sitting in bed. So I needed something to do. My body hurt, but my mind needed something to chew on. And so yeah, I looked at a lot of companies. I learned how to just read P&Ls. I learned a lot about the business acquisition process through that. And once I saw this business, I was like, this is a really nice overlap. I'm already in real estate. I'm passionate about it. I'm excited about it. For me, at that point, I hadn't figured out how to, I guess, master my deal flow, because I didn't have any systems around marketing, follow up, kind of all the things that it takes to make a business in real estate. And all of those were components that, I needed to manage if I were going to do my own marketing, which I absolutely was super thrilled and excited about in the process of buying this company. It was a much harsher consequences and a much bigger deal. I mean, we're talking multiple millions that I ended up paying for the business. I actually took those two properties that I had purchased initially and I sold those, took my equity, and that's what I used for my seed money to purchase this company. Yeah, absolutely. I would say that in general, like I was much more calculated about how I did it. It was a much bigger decision and it took a long time. From introduction to the business to close was about 4.5 months, I want to say. And so there's legal processes that go into that, making sure the assets are being distributed to me, to my entity properly from theirs. There's a lot of kind of sussing out that had to happen because of the SBA loan. And so in some of that, I was taking their cues, but also, I'm learning about cash flow forecasting and what it, again, just typical things in the business world that I had not been exposed to yet.
Another positive thing that you touched upon, I think that listeners can really benefit from, is you could buy real estate and build up equity. And from that point, once you build up that equity, you can use that capital for other things. I mean, you could use it to buy bigger or more houses. You could do a 1031 exchange into different like kind properties. Or, you could pull out the equity, sell the property, use that money to start a business like you did. So real estate has a lot of benefits, and that built up equity and debt pay down, increasing that equity is really important, and it can be used for many different things. So, I just want my listeners to kind of think in different terms. It's not always just about buying real estate, selling real estate, and then buying more real estate. You can use that capital for pretty much anything you want. That could be vacations, it could be boats. I don't recommend those things, but I do recommend creating more assets. Back to what we're talking about, the rich dad, poor dad concept. Reduce liabilities, maybe don't buy the boat, but yes, buy the business, invest in, other people's businesses, invest in real estate, buy your own real estate. Just kind of want to bring that up to the listeners that you can use that equity for just about anything you want. And we highly encourage you to reinvest that back into another asset.
Yeah. And, to touch on exactly what you're saying, it's like, and you can force appreciation. Those properties I put tons of sweat equity into. All the rents that came from that, I didn't spend on, silly things. I put it straight back into the property, made it nicer, improved my rents, and then it appraised for higher. And then there was more money to play with, more money to work with.
Exactly. Yeah. So all those benefits, the forced appreciation, meaning putting more money into it, making it worth more. Like we mentioned, debt pay down. There's a lot of tax benefits of buy and hold real estate. Your renters paying the rent every month is paying that mortgage down. So just widening that equity gap with every month that you hold it. So just want to get people thinking about why they might want to start to buy and hold real estate. And this is why. You build the equity, and towards the end of that investment, when you do go to sell or 1031 exchange or something else, then you have all that money to do whatever you want with. So just want to highlight that and mention that to the listeners. Now, did you say that you had started some other companies before getting into US lead list?
Yeah. So I had, I had a overhead garage door business. I had a, straight construction business. I owned a sawmill, and that just kind of led to its own business, just kind of in lumber in itself. I started making flooring and vending that. And so basically all of those were kind of just like stopgaps for my income kind of disparity that I had. Like, I had a lot of liabilities, kids, I love my kids, but at that time in my life, they were liabilities because I had to struggle to pay for them and support them in the way that at least I wanted to. It never felt like enough. So, yep, I had a couple different ventures.
Okay, so kind of getting into US lead list. Earlier you had mentioned, and kind of my experience too from knowing the company from years ago, it was pretty antiquated. I feel like the website was fairly old, needed some updates. Can you kind of talk about some of the stuff that you were looking into to increase the amount of technology used, and I would imagine updating the website, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so at its core, the product was good before I took over, but but I think antiquated is the right word. If you bought a list before 5 years ago, basically you would just get the the family name, the address, and the zip code. That was it. And you know, like I mentioned as well, they were doing all this from paper. They're taking paper orders. It worked. It worked really well for those guys, but it was getting to a point where it was kind of falling behind the times. And so when I took over, the first thing that we needed to adjust was the website and product delivery. Being a digital product, it's like people don't necessarily need salespeople, but sometimes people do. They need to understand the product well enough to know if it's a fit for them. Basically creating a way where they can go on our site, they can check it out, they can check out, they can and get the product whenever they want. So that was kind of the first step, developing, modernizing the website, creating more of a vending portal rather than just an information source. And then, we started looking a lot at the data, trying to find ways that we could basically just improve, modernize marketing practices. So, some of that is like skip tracing. That was never a thing. The old owners were like, this isn't, that's crazy. That's never going to be a big deal. I remember that at like the closing table. Skip trace, like no one is ever going to want to just call people. That's nuts. And what have you. Outbound marketing is a tool, and it works. Like I've got a deal where we're going to make an offer on Monday from outbound, and it works. But is it as effective as inbound marketing? I don't think so. I just like inbound marketing better. So usually that's what I stick with. But skip tracing, it's produced enough results for me where I'm like, it's a tool worth having in your tool belt, and I stick with it even now in my marketing. But so skip tracing, just adding more information around our product. So, I guess to back up, like our main product, we do several things, and, kind of our, the core of our superpower is data. We're data originators in that we build our own databases. We're not buying a canned product and redistributing it from someone else's. And our main product is what we call the inheritance list. And what we're doing there basically is we're aligning if someone passes away, and then do they own real estate? And for the most part, people, when I kind of line those two things up together, they're like, oh yeah, probate. It's like, yes, but no. So probate is a legal process, and that happens when someone dies, and there's no, necessarily, surviving spouse. Like it very much depends on the area, the state. So it's a lot more complex than that. So there's a bunch of kind of different segments. Inheritance is just connecting those two pieces, and it's before probate starts. So it's before any public notice or any of those things. We're basing it off the death and if they own real estate. And so there's kind of like 4 separate parts to that list. First is, pre-probate. That we can't find a spouse. This property, has this one person on title. That's likely going to have to go through probate. The next segment is surviving spouse. And, depending on the state you live in, if it's a marital property state, usually those don't have to go through probate. And so there's surviving spouses that's included on the list. And then we look for trusts. And again, if a property is in a trust, for the most part, it bypasses probate. There's no need. The beneficiaries are already established. And then the last kind of segment is interfamily transfers before the death. And so again, that would also bypass probate. And so we're basically just lumping together all of these properties and kind of the identities of these people and distributing it to folks on a monthly cadence. And so that was another big thing we changed, is that initially it was on a quarterly basis. And we found that there was, that gap was too large. We wanted to kind of shorten that timeline between when people got our list. So instead of doing quarterly, we switched to monthly, and we also basically made it like a subscription. So for me, I'm subscribed to Dane County, Wisconsin. I get my list every month on the 5th. I have an automated mail service that we also own as well, which is called Yellow Letter. And as soon as they get the data, they start printing, and my letters are basically in my mailbox within 4 days of that. And my marketing is automated, which is good for me because being like a traditional entrepreneur, I'm all over the darn place. And so consistency is key for me. So I think those are probably some, just high level view of the ways that we changed our business, how we run it, kind of made our data more relevant to the marketplace.
Now, do you guys focus primarily on pre-probate leads, or do you guys provide other types of leads as well?
I would say that the inheritance list is our majority, it's our main revenue driver. However, we do skip tracing, we do list sorts, we do list scrubbing. We also have just like some other basic products. We'll go in and pull county tax delinquent records. We're in the process of building and in kind of AI vision. If a property is in kind of disrepair, we'll give you kind of a score and give you the output for that. And then we kind of have a couple other specialized segments of our data, our inheritance list. So, and we sell this a little bit differently because they're, I guess the numbers aren't as great. And so I guess what I'm referring to is we sell commercial lists and we sell a land list. And so they're segments of the same inheritance data, but we sell those by the state and we only sell them to one person at any given time. So, like today, someone bought the New York list for land. It's a high ticket item. They're paying, low six figures, and they have exclusive marketing rights to inherited land in New York for the last 3 years going back. And then they also get a monthly subscription of that data going forward.
Wow, that's pretty cool that you have that subscription model going. I know that's really big in business and kind of changing the way that the old business was ran. Now leaning more towards subscription and more reoccurring, capital coming into the company.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's just better for customers too. Like we don't have any long-term contracts except for the commercial land. It's like you can pay for it when you want it. If you don't want to subscribe anymore, you can let us know and we'll take you off. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the other big differentiating factor. We didn't change this, but we heartily adopted, this principle that any county across the U.S., we only sell 3 times. So if there's 3 investors in a specific county, it's sold out, and there's a waiting list for that.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that and pulling back the curtain a little bit on the company and kind of how it works.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on AI? You'd mentioned that you're using it for some of the company's functions. Can you kind of talk about a little bit more detail on how are you using AI and like maybe what the future might lead with the company?
Yeah, I mean, so I like AI just as a whole. It serves me in a lot of different ways. And so, the first few components that I can think of how we use AI in our company is, basically at least the product that kind of AI vision that I mentioned. We're taking a Google Street image, we're having AI analyze that image to look for signs of disrepair. If there are, then we are assessing that and basically pushing that information to you in that properties in disrepair are more likely to sell than properties that are well upkept. So, I mean, that's a giant heavy lift that like it would take tons of man hours to do. Whereas, AI, like we give it the input, we provide the data for it, and it spits out a very useful, pertinent product for our end clients. But, on the flip side, we use AI pretty rigorously for just marketing, like not necessarily email or stuff like that, but we use it a lot for content marketing on our site. So SEO, we're building lots of articles, we're generating lots of content around real estate pertinent topics, and we're growing our marketing, or I guess our SERP share by doing that. And then, probably lastly within the company, how we're using AI is kind of like vibe coding, where we're having AI do and build custom tailored, I guess, processes and applications that serve either the front end of our business or the back end, their intercompany tools on the back end, or front facing, say, website or what have you. And so we use that a fair bit as well to just, test, try tools, because it's so easy and quick. We can get a marketable product and try it to see if it's useful in days rather than months. And so really quick feedback, really quick turnaround. And we can assess its viability for us or someone else.
I was going to say, have you guys looked into creating any automations or any AI for your clients to use, as far as like automatically have the leads come in, do some analysis on the leads that are coming in, maybe score them, or maybe automatically, like you said, send yellow letters? Or are you looking into any like automations for your clients?
It's funny, right? Because there's certainly automation is like an overlap with AI, right? But they're not
Yeah,
necessarily the same thing.
correct.
So yeah, with our website, just the core coding that we built for that, there's a lot of automation in there where it's like, yeah, you can get a subscription. You going forward, you enter your credit card once, it's in our system. We can do a sequence of letters for you. You just have to choose how many letters, and then we have to establish those proofs, and we can print those for you. And so yeah, certainly for our clients, and now we're pressing in a little bit more on the AI side on our products. It's like, okay, well, could we add an upcharge if we wanted to grade those inherited properties for our clients and let them know, hey, this target is best based on the visual inspection that we took. Focus on this. This property is worth door knocking versus, just send mail to the rest, or cold call the rest.
What about AI agents in the form of maybe text messages, emails, or even voice is starting to get pretty good with AI voice? Have you looked into that or thought about going down that route for your clients?
Yes. So one thing that is unique to inherited property owners is that, one, it's a more aged demographic.
Mm-hmm.
The average age of folks that end up on our inheritance list, it's like the high 60s. And I've found in general through tests that they don't interact that well with AI. Like they're not like excited about some automated function.
Yeah.
And that's further, I guess, exaggerated because they're usually in emotional distress. So like, I always explain to people when they're like, well, how should I talk to these people? What should my marketing, what should my message be? And, there's two main things that these people are going through that are kind of confusing what direction they should go in. And it's emotions and logistics. And so adding something that is emotionless, and then also creating something where like they don't understand the logistics behind, confuses them, and they kind of like, go into their shell mode, and they kind of back up. But I have played with it, and AI agents for texting, yeah, certainly. AI voice for inbound calls, I think is useful. It's not. I don't think it's quite to the human level, and it can be frustrating. It's getting better, and it's getting better rapidly,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's quite there where it is a substitution for a human. Like at the end of the day, I feel much more confident right now that if I were to take inbound calls, I would convert much higher than AI could for me. Granted, I have to trade time for that, and at some point that may switch. I don't know when that would be, but currently that's my stand, where I stand on that.
I'm going to give a bold estimation: December of this year.
You think so?
I think that's when voice agents from AI will sound so good that it's hard to distinguish them. Because like you said, it is so rapid. I mean, even a month, you can just
Yeah,
see how much
you're
AI
right. I
has
agree.
progressed. So we'll
Yeah.
make a bold statement. We'll check back. My guess is December 2025. We'll have, well, and it has to be affordable too, because I know there's certain voice agents and voice agent companies out there that are really good, but they're extremely expensive. I mean, we're talking like 10,000 a year to have,
Right.
multi-line dialers, outbound stuff like that. So my estimate is about December 2025 we should have fairly priced and very good quality voice agents that can respond to inbound and outbound as well. So I'm going to make that bold prediction. We'll check back in a couple months.
I like it.
Uh,
I like that you're putting yourself out there on the line. And I think, to your point, like it's changing so much.
so
The
fast.
new iterations, it's like yeah, it is definitely a parabolic curve right now as far as the improvements of AI going
Yeah,
forward.
just mind blowing.
It really is.
You kind of just mentioned how you try to have people who do make these calls, if they are doing cold calls, and reaching out to these people that are going through a very emotional time. You kind of teach them to lead with empathy. Can you kind of talk a little bit more about that and how you usually tell people to approach some of these cold calls?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So for me in my company, just my personal business, where we're doing deals, what I've found to be the most effective way to kind of connect with these people, because at the end of the day, they're not trying to just like solve one specific problem. And because death is, it's just a really complex thing. I don't know what all of those problems are. And so in reality, this is true of any transaction. If someone wants to sell, like if you don't know what the problems are, you don't know how to solve the problems, and you don't know how to craft an offer that's going to be appealing to them. And so for me, when I'm taking either inbound calls or outbound calls, and I just introduce myself. Hey, my name's Micah. I'm a local investor. I'm curious if you thought about selling your property. And if they say yes or maybe, pretty much my response there is like, I back up away from the property. Like, I don't care about the property. That's not, for me, like, that's not the problem that I need to solve. So I choose to, just open, the next part of the conversation with an open-ended question. Okay, well, what's the situation there? Or can you tell me what's happening? Um, and I just, wait for them to kind of fill that gap in the conversation. And they're like, well, my husband died. I can't keep up with this place. And all of a sudden they're describing all the things that I need to solve as a negotiator to get them to be like, absolutely, I want to work with you. And so I think that's kind of the starting point. But I really encourage people to, treat, and this is funny because it touches on AI and something that everyone is so excited about AI, and I am too, but it can't be a human. And so what has happened in the world, I think, especially in sales, is that the object is more important than the person who's, I guess either selling their house or buying something. The outcome is more important than the person themselves. And so for me, what I really try and get people to do is focus on, like, how do you get someone who is a complete stranger within 5 minutes to feel like they know, like, and trust you, and they're confident that you can do exactly what that you say you're going to do, and get them to believe you. Because if you can achieve all of those things, your success rate is going to be way higher than anyone else. Not just because you'll be closing more deals, but at the same time, you're going to be able to convince more people who are maybes, that are, not sure, don't know. You can give them clarity, and you can, help them sort through that clutter and be decisive. Foreign cold callers, or like, people, cheaper services that are doing this, it's like, they don't care about the person. They're not interested in all those things. And so I really just coach people to get these people to know, like, and trust you, and be confident and project confidence in that you can get whatever it is that they want done. And at the end of the day, I'll be able to do deals in situations where I'm actually offering a lower price, but people like me more, and they'll do deals with me because they like me more. And that's true of anyone. If you back up and think about it, it's like, who do we do business with? Who do we like to be around? It's like, we like to be around our friends and people who make us feel important. Because that's, for me, what our friends are for. It's like, they make me feel important, and I gotta make them feel important. It's this reciprocity. In a nutshell, I could go deeper on that. It's just, being empathetic, trying to understand their situation, listen to a story about, a veteran who, went to Vietnam and drank beer and shot the enemy down. Like I've listened to many of those conversations, and it does actually have currency in the conversation and in the deal at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think it's something else that's really important to really consider about, some of these people in this unfortunate situation is they may be getting bombarded by other investors at the same time, because it is in fact public record. Some of these things are public record, and that might have a whole bunch of different investors also contacting them at the same time. Do you have any strategies, maybe along the lines of what you were just talking about, to really stand out from the crowd of people that might be bombarding them with either mail marketing or cold calls?
Do you mean just on the outset of mail marketing? I can speak to that a lot. But I think what I already said is just be a good listener, be empathetic, ask good questions, and actually be interested. Don't be distracting yourself on your phone while you're having this conversation. Feel what it's like to lose your spouse, because, heaven forbid, we're all going to die. And so, you might be in the reverse situation at some point, and appreciate that you actually helped someone through that time. Yeah, I think, you can create emotional tension with people just by showing them that they're important. And for me, I do more deals because of it. I know. On the flip side, though, before the marketing happens, direct mail, direct mail, it's funny because it's one of the easiest things to price shop, right? Everyone, they've all got their charts. You order 2,000, you can get, for 80 cents, we'll get you bulk shipping and all these things. But I guess my question to that and price shopping and how you determine the value of your direct mail is, does it pass the junk mail test? Everyone, I don't care who you are. We all have this ritual. We go to the mailbox and we're like, junk, junk, junk. We don't look at the message. We don't care. It goes in the trash. Every time that happens, you're wasting money. So yeah, maybe you're getting a cheaper rate on, the mail piece itself. But as far as impressions go of people actually taking in your information, if only 30% are reading your message, that's a big loss as far as, marketing goes, and first impressions and then callbacks from there. And so I just prefer to send higher quality mail. And so for me, what that looks like is I intentionally send something that it looks like it's out of a Hallmark aisle. It's in a nice linen colored envelope. It's not in a business, A10 shape. I use A2 letters. I use a real first class stamp because I want that to be forwarded on to people who might be, not local and they're managing the estate. If you use bulk mail, it won't get forwarded on, or it basically just gets destroyed. They destroy it. Really, any way that you can kind of break the monotony of direct mail is gonna make you more money. And so, those are just a couple of high level things that I think are worth, kind of focusing on. Any kind of different colored looking envelope, maybe some 3D mail, maybe you put a dollar bill hanging out the backside. I don't know, anything to make yourself look different. And you are ultimately going to make more money because people will be focusing, they'll be paying attention to what you're sending them rather than throwing it away.
Now, one interesting piece of mail that I've encountered is the fake checks. What's your thoughts on those? Do you think those are effective or 50-50? What's your thoughts?
I do think that they're effective. But it's kind of a bait and switch situation there.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a little bit deceitful.
Exactly. I mean, and it may be true. It's maybe I can actually get this for you, but I think where it really pisses people off is when they go and try and cash that at their, they don't actually read it. They go to their bank, they walk in there and they're like, I want to cash this check. I'm going to sell my house right now. And they're like, this isn't a check. I think, that really frustrates people, and it would be maybe hard to get their business back after they're wasted their time. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it definitely drives attention. It puts a price on their house, and it gets people to take action. I'm not opposed to it if it's done the right way, but kind of the way that it's set up with most mail companies right now, it's sneaky, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
meant to look like a real check. Maybe if it was, there was void or something across the front, or made it really obvious. But like, a seller is a seller, and if they see a check and that's exciting, like you're talking to the right person, so it does drive those people out, and you can get in contact with them more often.
So, from what you see from your clients, what would you say? Which marketing strategy is working best for your clients right now? Is it direct mail? Is it cold calling? Is it maybe a mixture of both, or is there something else?
Yeah, I have clients who only do direct mail. I have clients who only cold call, and a lot of hybrid. The main distinction as far as like success metrics doesn't actually come down to kind of how they're marketing. It has more to do with the mentality around what the marketing is. So, for example, I had a client. He bought my list for 2 months. He did one deal. And he's like, that was it. I'm done now. It's like, and I'm just so confused when this happens, because I'm like, wait. I just I gave you a formula for how to print money, and you're like, you're done. Like that wasn't like that. You got all you wanted, and he's like, yeah. I was like, okay, yeah. Like my mind is kind of blown. Like, I guess maybe come
You're
back.
like, I would understand it more if you did it and it didn't work, and then you're like, I'm done. That
Right,
makes sense. But people over here are like, oh, I made $40,000. That's it.
right. Yeah, I'm gonna stop now. I
Yeah.
think I'm gonna go on vacation. I'll be back when I'm desperate again, or something. I don't really know, um, but the folks who kind of integrates our marketing into kind of everything else that they're doing, and kind of manage it with the same kind of, I guess, handling, they have a hard time of converting these leads, because it just ends up being a different conversation. And so it almost takes someone specific on your team, or you intentionally creating time where you're like, this is this is my US lead list number. Like the calls are coming in from those. I handle these in a specific way. I personally, I think the way that I talk to clients and how I do deals works on any other kind. But if you don't have a softer touch, and you make it all about the end means, the dollar, how much you're going to make, what are you selling for, you end up, I feel like, breaking your opportunity before you have a chance to really get traction. And so that's one big fail point of people, and I've seen with my clients. They're like, well, we tried it, it didn't work. On the flip side, I have clients that literally have been with us since the beginning of our company. They're like 20-year-old clients, and they're still using our service, and they're still doing deals. And so I asked them, it's like, well, what are you guys doing? Because I wasn't here this whole time, and like I'm not some genius. I want to know. And so they're like, well, we don't stop marketing. So they just keep on mailing forever, in perpetuity, to our list. I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy. So you don't stop? No, we don't stop. And it's worth it? Yeah. Okay. And when these leads are coming in, what is that like? How are you doing it? It's like, well, if someone calls me, they're interested in selling their property, whether they say, maybe, or I don't know, or like, so my follow-up game is really, really strong. Like they have an entire sequence, an SOP of what it means to follow up with a lead. And it's way more than what most people think, and for a lot longer. So I think those two components, it's like they're marketing for a long time. They kind of have the right attitude. They treat these leads right. But then there's kind of that follow-up process that, they're not giving up. They keep on pinging this person over and over and over again. And at the end of the day, I think the reason why, once people get success with our list and they actually do stay on, they don't just leave after one, is that, we're not churning out a crazy amount of deals, but the net profit for inheritance deals is way higher than a standard, assignment, or, just a typical deal. Usually money isn't the problem. These houses are typically paid down. They're looking for solutions around, like I was saying earlier, emotions and logistics. If you can solve all of that, like they can take a $15,000 haircut on the property because there's no mortgage. As I've done more and more real estate deals, I would rather make more money in less deals and do a bunch of deals and make, that same amount of money. Bigger deals makes my life as a owner, as an investor, a lot easier to manage.
Thanks for sharing all that great information. I really appreciate you telling us what your clients are doing and what's working for them, because I think that's important for our listeners to know what's working and what's not, which paths to take and maybe some to avoid. So thanks again for sharing all of that. Switching gears a little bit. So I ask all my guests this: what is your favorite book right now, or what are some of the books that you recommend to students or colleagues?
Favorite book right now. I am in the middle of Persuasion, it's basically a sales book. I mean, it has a lot to do with just, marketing, business marketing, psychographics around the sales process. And this is applicable to, getting sellers to sell to you or selling your product to other people. But, there are ways that you can impress your ideas and have other people feel like they were theirs. And you're not persuading them. You're not doing it for them. They're doing it for themselves because you're building kind of a box for them to think inside of. And that's really useful to be able to control a conversation in that way when you have a desired outcome. That book has been really interesting. I got like a stack of books over here that I loved. Like a lot of my reading is business focus, sales focus. Zig Ziglar's Secrets of Closing is definitely on that list for me. Robert Kiyosaki for sure. Like, it's just a story, but it just sets so many seeds. It sows ideas in so many different areas in just the simple story that has changed the pattern and the shape of my life in a really dramatic way. And again, like I said, that's pretty cliche. Good to Great is definitely high on the list for me as well. Just trying to define, what we're amazing at and then really focusing on those principles and like determining, that's again, business book, but the fundamentals of that apply to just about anything.
So you just kind of mentioned Good to Great. Another book along those lines that I highly recommend is B 2.0, Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0. Jim Collins, Bill Lazier, the authors, great book. Highly recommend it. Has a lot of the stuff from Good to Great, but it also incorporates a lot of his other books too. It's almost like a final wrap up of all the concepts in all of his other books.
I'll have to check that out.
Which leads us to the free book giveaway. So each week we give away a free book to our listeners. All they need to do is like this episode and comment which book they would like. And you have 5 days after the air date to enter, and one lucky winner will have the book shipped straight to their house or business or P.O. box. It's up to you. So some of the ones we have are Rich Dad, Poor Dad, of course. We also have the Cash Flow Quadrant, too, if someone's looking for that second one. 10X Rule, Go Giver, Millionaire Real Estate Investor. That's one of my favorites down here at the bottom. So, again, all you have to do is like the episode and comment which book you'd like to receive, and one lucky winner will have it shipped to their house.
That's wicked.
Micah's story is such a powerful reminder that business isn't just about chasing deals. It's about building freedom. Focus beats frenzy, empathy beats sales scripts, and consistency beats chasing every shiny object. Don't let your business trap you. Design it so it gives you energy, time, and a legacy for you and your family. Micah, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.